Here we are.
Welcome back
Whoa.
to...
Where? Set the standard. We should say it together. Ready?
Ready?
Set oh, you're going to say it real fast?
No.
3, 2, 1.
Set the standard.
Wow. Seldon stand. We could never be in the same band together.
No. But we're back, you guys. Set the standard, the Seldon standard.
Mm-hmm.
All right? This could be any standard you want. It should be your standard.
All right.
But these are our standards, and hopefully you can catch something from it.
Well, I think the important thing is we've done a few of these now, and hopefully you've been listening in. We look forward to joining and subscribing on YouTube and picking us up on Instagram.
Apple Podcasts. It took a month for us to get approved. It was
we're
like
on
such
Apple, and we're on X now.
Yeah, we're on Twitter.
X. It's X now.
Yeah, no, I know.
And so we're worldwide. We're nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
We're bad.
Worldwide,
we're nationwide.
Baby. The only place you can't find us is on Mars.
Yeah, we're real grateful for those of you who are listening in, responding, commentary, and so forth. And it's given us some feedback and thinking about some topics. And we are actually, this will be the first topic that we're doing a second.
Kind of a subcategory, right?
Yeah, it is.
Off of our dating.
It's a good way to say it. I like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really exciting. I have some juicy tea to spill. And do you know what that means?
Juicy tea.
Do you know what it means when you're like,
sounds kind of gross.
Have you heard? Have you heard? I'm going to spill the tea.
Spill the tea. I have not. I spilled the beans.
Do you know what spill the tea means?
I'm sure you're going to tell me.
No. Guess.
I don't know. It means give a juicy, tell a story.
Yeah, with a lot of detail.
Where did that come from, that saying? I've never heard that before.
But
it's probably a new generation
But
thing.
I have some tea. My dad has some tea. And we're going to be spilling it. In today's episode, it's going to be all about dating apps and online dating.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Sam.
Our mascot is joining us here. Is she in this
Come
shot?
here. Sam, come here.
All right, here comes our mascot. Sam the Wonder Dog. She can catch a stick 50 feet in the air and land on all four. Sam, what are you doing? Look at the camera. Our first podcast on dating was really just a general overview, why people date and so forth. And as you might imagine, as the decades have gone on, the strategies for dating have evolved. Makes sense, again, up until the internet was introduced, we all met through friends or family, at church,
school,
bar. So, wherever. Someone in our family recently met the person they're dating while they were exercising at a metro park.
Yep.
And that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different way to meet. And they're, so far, so good there. And so
I know you have to fill me in on that.
Yeah.
That's for later.
So online dating is definitely, we were thinking about like some of the pros and cons to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I became newly single, kind of midlife, it became really a convenience. I was traveling a lot, so I didn't have a lot of time to meet people really in a social setting per se. Mm-hmm. And so I could use online dating really from anywhere that, I was at the time.
Right. What year was that?
This would be starting around 2008. So it was still fair.
So you got on your first dating app website in 2008?
Yeah. Yeah, probably 2007, 2008. Yeah.
Okay.
And frankly, it's hard to believe they were around that long ago.
Fun fact for those of you who may be like super young or my age, MySpace started as a dating.
That's right.
It started as a community for dating. It was literally the first one, and then it became like the first social media, honestly.
That's true.
It really did.
It's a good one.
So, and that was, it might have been 2008. It might have been 2006. We'll have to like fact check that.
And my guess is if you're listening to this, you've probably experienced online dating apps yourself, or you have friends. Mm. And there's all kinds of stories out there around it. And so what we thought we would do is talk a little bit about the pros and cons of dating apps. And a lot of that comes from our own experiences.
Yeah. If you had caught up with any of the episodes pertaining to the dating. We did a dating one, part 1. And then we also did Can You Fall in Love Without Having Intimacy? In both of those, I had mentioned kind of some of my experiences I had in dating this year for kind of the first time. I'd never really dated before until this year. And at that moment in time, about 2 months ago, we were really filming a lot of content for this podcast. I had never tried a dating app. And my dad has a really good dating app experience from Match.com.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, let's do it for the content. And when I left at the beginning of August, actually right before I came in August, I downloaded a dating app.
We'll break it down this way so we can keep it tidy. We'll get a little into the pros and cons as we see it, and you have your own pros and cons. We'll talk a little bit about some of our experiences and what we learned from those. Some things that came out of it as a result of kind of going down that path. And then we're going to leave you with some tips and tricks, kind of some things that we would do differently, knowing what we know now, or what we would share with someone who's maybe came to us and said, hey, I'm thinking about getting a dating app. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. What are your tips? Even like what I did and what I thought was great, and then what I would do differently. Yeah.
So just some quick pros and cons. We already mentioned a couple of them. They're convenient. It's very easy to pick up your phone and immediately have a wide variety. There are...
What, is that a pro?
I said a pro.
Okay.
I'll come back on that. I think there are a lot of different types of dating apps. There's Christian, there's farmer. I know someone in the family went to one that
conservative
was conservative. I mean, you probably know more. There's for
all
every gender, every gender
in
type.
Sexuality.
Yes.
Yep.
There's probably, we could say it, there's some raunchy ones.
Yep.
They're just for pickups or whatever. Yep. We won't be discussing those today. And so
I thought you had so much experience.
Yeah. So the pros are and there are some specifically that ask a lot more detail to create a profile.
True.
Instead of just throwing a picture on, standing there in my Speedo, looking all buff, there are some that really get into, kind of the things that make you who you are, assuming that you're telling the truth.
And I'm assuming that most of you now that are on the internet, obviously you're watching or listening to this podcast, you've probably been on a dating app.
Yes.
Let's be for real. Yeah. Oh, you did?
Yeah, I already said that.
I missed that. I'm not listening.
Well, you're not,
No,
because you don't have your headphones on. Put your headphones on.
I know.
So you can hear everything I say.
I know.
So
okay, let's get into the pros. Let's start.
We are in the pros. Where are you? Have another drink of tea. So it's for all ages. That was a cool thing about one of the pros, is that whether you're 21, or in my case I was in my 40s, and I know my wife's mom, who in her 70s actually had used dating apps. So it's got there's a wide variety for ages and so forth, and just lots of choices. So those are pros. Some of the cons are there's lots of choices.
Right, there's lots of choices.
So,
how do you even pick,
Yeah, so I think that's where, when we get into tips, I think that's where you'll have to start thinking about what it is you're really looking for. That should determine maybe the apps you start with, if you know specifically. If you go on Bumble, or was it Hinge?
Tinder,
and so forth, those are known to be a certain style of app. If you go on eHarmony, Match.com.
Are those still going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Christian Mingles.
Yeah. The farmer one I told you about.
Yeah.
I think one of the cons is it tends to replace meeting in person or talking at least live. I think some people have a propensity to just, text through the app, or just text and so forth. Well, where'd you go to school? And rather than actually converse.
Right.
I see that as a con. I think while it's okay for some simple introductory things, I think at some point I picked up the phone. I gave my number.
Right.
I wasn't afraid to do it. I said,
or did you ask for a number?
Well, I found that is always makes someone uncomfortable, especially if we've just started texting, or, I remember on Match.com, I think you could send a smile or something. I forget how it worked, but so I would just say, hey, sounds like we have some things in common. Would you be up for a call? talk on the phone. And if they said yes, Sam, here's my number. If they weren't, then fine. Then I knew they weren't interested. But I would definitely want to have.
So get right on a call, because there's less face-to-face nowadays.
I think so that's a con. Safety.
For me specifically, it's been.
And that, again, we'll talk about in our tips maybe how to, not to get around that, but how you could ensure a safe scenario. So we'll talk about that. And people lie. One of the cons is not that they can't lie to your face, but one of my stories will talk specifically about someone that lied about their age and other things. Oh. And so when they showed up, it was obvious that they had lied.
Yeah. I think back when you first started the dating websites, it was easier to lie. Now, because people have LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, it's kind of like if someone says they're 6'5" and they're only 5'11", or like, let's say, I think it's kind of easy to tell.
Yeah, I don't know. I think,
or let's say they say they're 5'11", but they're actually 5'8". I feel like you could easily tell on their other platforms that they're short.
But that's a tip. How many people actually research a person?
Well, yeah, we'll get into the tips later.
That's right.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think there are other pros and cons. Those are the ones we just hit off the top of our head. And I think we're not here to discourage or encourage. What we're saying is, go into it with your eyes wide open.
But I also think a pro that, like you didn't say, is you can actually meet someone and really fall for them. And really.
Well, the pro.
Isn't that a pro of a dating app? It can actually be very positive.
The pro is that you can meet people.
Because let's be honest, before I got on this dating app, I thought dating apps were silly. There was no chance at finding someone. I thought you were like a fluke, right, for finding your wife, like the second chapter of your life who brought so much more adventure to your life, right? I thought that was a fluke, right? But from my own experience, you can actually meet someone of value. I think before going into it, I thought everyone was it was quantity over quality.
It'd be interesting to know what the percentages of success rate is. I don't know how you could keep track of that unless So I think from there, I think they can be a good thing. I think we agreed that, and to Genelle's point about meeting the right person, we think they're a good idea. I think have they made dating better or worse? I would say
worse.
Okay, you immediately say worse. I was going to say it's a little bit of both. Because,
actually, yeah, I should.
Well, yeah, just your point. If you meet somebody, why would you say it's worse?
Right.
I think the way it makes it better is knowing what we're going to talk about, really. Some of the tips and tricks and setting expectations for yourself. Remember, there's always going to be someone that abuses these things and goes into it with the wrong intentions. And then there are truly, we are both examples of that, there are truly people who are using them to meet people, And it's kind of one of the examples I'll give you is when I became single, I didn't do a lot of this, but I remember thinking about it. I went to where people had clubs or gatherings of things that I like to do. So as an example, bike riding. So there's tons of groups of people who have bike riding clubs, bike riding this, bike riding that. I didn't do a lot of that, but because I didn't have as much time. So, when you think about different ways, you can, if you have hobbies that you really like, say you're into painting or photography or whatever, there's plenty of groups out there you can join. But truly, from a satellite position, you can literally be on your dating app anytime, So in my case, when I was traveling a lot and I was, wasn't going to be home for 3 or 4 days, I could be literally and communicating as well during that time.
Totally.
So I think it's helped dating, and I don't know if it should replace other methods. If you're so fortunate to try some other methods, maybe if you go to a church function and there's people there, or you go out with some friends who have friends.
Well, there's funny in LA. It just started coming up. They're doing you pay like a ticket price and you do speed dating. So
I've seen that.
Yeah, so
they never did that. But.
So they have those in LA, and apparently I actually had a guy friend of mine like go to one actually recently.
What do you spend, like 10 minutes with each person?
Yep, and there's like, I think there's 20 tables, so you meet like 20 people within like a 2.5 hour time span, and you're all just sipping on wine, or you just have your cocktail and you spend a quick 10 minutes.
Kind of rotate.
Yeah. And it's actually kind of picked up a little bit in.
Well, it's been around for.
LA.
I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
I never did it.
It's like $150 though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Got to pay for all that wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we go back to the old school versus new school, this is clearly, had there not been an internet, this would not have evolved to what it is. Again, I met different people. When I think about how I met Genelle's mother, that was through a friend. It was
right.
we were in a circle of people, and somebody.
Well, that was back in the 30s.
Yeah, I thought it was just back in the 30s.
So
it's just funny. I look back at that, and that was a very natural process.
Well, you guys didn't have internet then.
No, well, that's was what crazy. I said, and so, I think it's not a matter of is old school better than new school. I think there's pros and cons,
Totally.
And I think so. The merging of the two is what. I think we're talking about here. So I think we should probably get into some experiences.
Yeah.
So do you want to share your experiences first, and then
Yeah.
Okay. Get into some experiences.
Yeah. So,
juicy.
Yeah. So I tried a dating app. It's been exactly 30 days, a little over 30 days.
Oh,
and
wow.
The dating app that I did try, I only did one, and it's called Raya. And I have a story to tell. So Raya, basically, to kind of give those of you out there who have never heard of it, I'm going to sound very LA, but it's an exclusive dating app that you get invited to through other people who have already got accepted onto the app or know someone in the industry, I should say. So it's a lot of artistic people. It's artists, actors, models, people, blah, 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 in the industry, or know someone in the industry that gets them on the app, and you have some sort of, I hate to say status, but it's something like that. I ended a relationship exactly 3 years ago. And when I did, so many people around me were like, get on this dating app. You have to try Raya. And I originally got the app and I got accepted right away on it, right when I became single 3 years ago. And I remember just being on it for a week. I was so heartbroken during that time. I couldn't even be on the app. I think I was on it for maybe 5 days. And it's $20 a month. So it also starts, you pay $20 a month for it. I don't know how much it is for like the other apps and stuff. If you have to even start with a fee to even start this app, it's $19.99. And then you can only go through so many people, exit or heart, so many people a day. And then you can skip the wait and pay more money to have like a higher premium. So that's kind of how this app works. It's a little different from Hinge and Bumble from what I've seen. So anyways, I got on this app 3 years ago, deleted it 5 days after. I was depressed. I was sad. I never looked back. I had always looked at dating apps as kind of like a thirst trap. I thought it was for the thirsty, kind of desperate people, because I would be like, if you're out.
Well, there are some of those.
Yeah. I'm like, if you're out there in the world, how hard is it to find a mate? You know what I mean? If you're smart, you're hardworking, and you have a decent amount of friends, you don't need to have a ton of friends, but 3, 4, 5, those people all know 3, 4, or 5 people. Mm-hmm. You're bound to meet someone of great status. You are who you surround yourself with. So if your friends are great, I'm sure they're surrounded by great people, blah, blah, blah. So I looked at dating apps for so long as that negative, desperate thing. So just this summer, I think at the top of 2023, I talked about this in the Dating 101, I started really dating. I was like, I'm going to give this a try. And actually a guy that I had met approached me and he asked me out to be his Valentine. I did this whole thing. So my dating really started. I was like, all right, let's do this. I got in the habit of being on dates.
Right, giving it a shot.
Yeah, giving it a shot. So come the beginning of summer, mid-June, I had been on several dates with a good amount of people. And these were all people I'd met in person, blah, blah, blah. But I was just disappointed every single time. And that's another story for later. So I think I kind of took a month off and we really were working on the podcast. My dad and I were grinding. We were filming so many episodes. then I was like, you know what? We got to juice up our content. Let's do stuff for the content. And I was thinking this too. I don't know if I really vocalized this to my dad that I was going to do this, but I was like, I'm going to get back on this dating app. I was talking to my best friend, Heather. Shout out, Heather. I was like, you know what? She's like, do it. You know what? Why not try it? It'll be a funny story. If anything, it'll turn out good, whatever. So I download Raya. Okay. End of July. Immediately you get on there and you see so many good looking, successful people. There are some famous people on there. You have a series of photos. You have your favorite like spots you like to go to. You pick a song, and I think it has your age and like where you're located. Now, Raya shows you people in your city. So I'm in LA, but then it'll also show you some Miami people, some New York people, some Chicago. But when I traveled to Michigan, I came here in beginning of August, it switched and showed me Chicago, Detroit men, and then a few scattered Vancouver, LA, and then Spain. You'd get some European guys in there, some Australian guys. So you were kind of getting like a good mix of where you're at in your radius, or just a couple sporadic ones, depending on whatever. I think they just throw it at you. So I just started getting on there and throwing hearts out there or throwing X's. I was, oh, wow, this guy's really cute. Tons of cuties, tons of good looking people.
So were you only making whatever, throwing hearts or whatever it is out there based on looks, or did you look at their profile? And how much of what do you see in their profile?
Right. So in the profile, you see a song. They pick a song. You can also make a curated playlist, so you can kind of get a taste of their music. You can put little words for your favorite hobbies, habits, things you love.
Okay.
And then you put like, there's a little bio section. So a lot of guys put their height. I noticed they're like 6'3". You know what I mean? And then their favorite emoji. And then their age.
That's it?
Their age.
Okay.
What they do for work.
Okay.
Their Instagram handle. And then a series of like 5 to 10 pictures. That's pretty much all you see on Raya.
Okay. Do you think it's enough?
Yeah, I mean, I know Hinge has those voice notes and you can like be like, what is the most important thing to you? And I think when you're on a dating app, I just think keep it short and sweet. You know,
Okay.
I want to know what you do for a living. You know, I want to know your age and I want to know where you're located.
Okay.
Maybe check out a song. I think music is a good quick, indicator of what they like, right? If they have a good song, you're like, oh, wow, I love this song. I was fine with it. So I start hearting people and I start feeling that validation that, oh, hey, oh my gosh, they can send you roses. They can pay money to send you a direct message and bypass even waiting for you to like them back. So like if you like someone, it'll say, oh, they liked you, you're connected, and go right to your DMs. Like the messages. So men can also pay extra money to directly message me and bypass waiting for me to potentially like them. So they can shoot their shot by paying money into my DM. So I was getting that. So here I am, all of a sudden, I was feeling low after like all my dates kind of went sour of people that I had met in person. Now I'm like, oh my gosh, all these guys want to take me out. They want to see me, da da da. So I also liked it too because it was separate from my social media. I like my social media separate from like, I don't know. I look at social media as something fun I like to do. I don't like to incorporate dudes in there or follow dudes for dating. So anyways, I heart this one guy and he messages me and he says something very interesting. And it was about a singer who was also from Michigan. And he was like, oh my gosh, you're the only other singer, artist person, because I put that I'm like a singer or whatever, that I know that did the move from Michigan to LA. And this singer is the lead singer of Red Hot Chili Peppers. He has like a crazy story. So this guy messages me and he like is like, you got to read his story. Like, it's so cool. You know,
was it Kiedis?
Yep.
Yeah. Anthony Kiedis.
Yep. So whatever. I'm chatting with a whole bunch of people at this point. I get back to LA. And
by the way, the singer from Tool also lived in Michigan and moved to LA.
Is he from Michigan though?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, fun fact.
Maynard.
So
Tool.
I'll keep this short and sweet.
Too late for that.
Basically, one of the guy, a couple of guys were more consistent. So there was some small talk. Some of it fell off. Some of them were like, drinks tonight, 10 p.m. Nah, I'm good. Like, that's not my vibe. I'm not doing that. Some of them were really consistent and had like a good punchline. They were great at conversation. So one specific person really, I think, was diligent, asked for my number, texted me. We texted a little bit. I was kind of all over the place because I was talking to a lot of other people. I was traveling, whatever. And then the day that I got back to LA from the last Michigan trip, he texted me and he was like, hey, are you in town this weekend? And so I was like, oh, perfect timing, whatever. I'll entertain this. I hadn't texted him back, I think, in a few days. And yeah, we went out. We had a first date and it was weird. It was my first dating app date ever. So I'm showing up to a place to get some wine. I've never seen this person in person. I'm like kind of scared. And I don't know, it's hard to take them seriously because you're just like, this is such a stranger. Mm-hmm. So we do end up having good conversation. I go to put my card down because I felt so awkward because this isn't someone I met before. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll offer to pay half, whatever. We'll see. I've learned never offer to do that. But
I disagree. Go.
Oh, yeah. Okay. And he let me pay. So I was like, all right, this guy's
half.
Yeah, half. And I was like, all right, this guy's not into me. It's fine, whatever. I mean, I always have a good time anyways because like I think I'm fun and exciting. So like I always have good conversation because I try to my best to make it good. So he offered to drive me home. I 100% took that. I was like, yeah, I'm not paying for this Uber. You just made me pay for the date. So he dropped me off and I was like, okay, I probably won't hear from him. Next morning, I hear from him. Long story short, a couple of them stayed consistent. This one specifically. And now
So you're saying you just got lucky. There's nothing in particular that you did, in your screening process or to figure out that this guy wasn't a psycho or some nut job. What was it that made you decide to meet him, in person?
So you
said consistency. I heard you say.
Well, the people that I gave my number out, I like made sure I like thought they were like handsome. I liked what they did for their job.
Assuming that's the truth.
Yep. Assuming it's the truth, which we'll get into tips because I verify all that online and it's really hard to hide, right? Like,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And you done this with this guy, clearly.
I did check a couple things.
Okay.
Yeah. Just to make sure. I didn't do like a deep dive. I'm not going to give someone that much of my energy, but I do a quick little see it.
Gotcha.
Okay. Whatever.
Okay.
So that's why I chose to meet him. And I thought he was a cutie. Like I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna meet him. Let's see what he's got. And I feel like I also, my friend Heather and I, we really wanted to practice talking about our standards with a guy into dating. So getting on a first date and having those really tough questions. What are you looking for? What's important to you? Things that you've coached me on. I think another reason why I wanted to do the dating apps thing is because when you're going into a date with someone you've never met, personally for me, you kind of tend to not get as nervous because you don't know what you're stepping into. I found that when I met the person prior and I really had a crush on them and then they took me out on a really intimate date, I would get so nervous. But meeting these guys from the dating app, I was like, oh, whatever. I've got everything to gain and nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm gaining an experience. I have nothing to lose here. So that's why I went on this date with this guy. So now we're almost a month into meeting this particular one. And yeah, we're seeing each other now. And it's such an interesting thing because, all year I had been meeting people in person and going on dates. And then here I give this dating app a try for the content, for the show.
So you said a couple things. I want to just make sure for the audience sake. This raya isn't, anyone can't just join it. So it's more of a members only type of.
It is. Yeah. Great way to say it.
Okay.
Members only.
So we didn't really discuss that in the kind of pros and cons. So maybe a members only type dating app might be something to consider. Does the dating app itself screen people? Or it's just, hey, if you want to be a member and this members only, you just have to pay a fee.
You just have to know someone to get you in.
Okay.
So basically, by seeing these people on the app, they knew someone. So you can't be too much of a BSer. You can, but like not really.
Yeah, anybody can.
Yeah. So, yeah, to conclude that, now I'm exclusively seeing this person, and it's crazy because sitting in front of this camera like a month ago, I would have never said that, and it's very interesting. So that's my story. I'm sorry it was long and dragged on, but that's just the
I think as I'm sitting here just trying to have the audience take away, and maybe I'll just share one story the opposite of that, and that was, this is many years ago, but again on Match.com, I liked this person or whatever. I can't remember. I think it was something to do with you send them a smiley face or whatever. We started talking. Pictures were posted. The way Match did it back then was your job, little biography, even ask you, put down how much money you make, which I think was kind of goofy.
No way.
I think it asked if you had kids or any divorced.
Okay.
That kind of stuff was on there if I remember. But, again, in the kind of open area, some people would just put a couple things and some people would write.
Right. You can choose
like
to do
paragraphs, right?
Oh, gosh.
So the way the app worked back then was you could communicate within the app. So before you
Was it an app or just a web? You had to be on a computer.
It was a computer.
Yeah.
Sorry, online. So the wait for safety reasons, you would just communicate within the app. So or in the online thing. So you wouldn't be able to, unless you were on the internet, you wouldn't, so I found myself a few times in the evening just sitting on the computer through the app communicating. And, it's a little bit slower than texting today, right? Because you can text so fast and talk and do all this stuff. So I'm sitting behind my computer waiting. And so it became kind of manic, because now I'm sitting, okay, because you're firing off questions at each other, right?
Right.
So I pretty much after a little bit of that, I said, you know what, I'm just going to ask somebody, hey, would you like to talk on the phone? And I would give my number up, if they were uncomfortable, give me theirs. But anyway, at any rate, I went out with and met this gal. And immediately when she showed up to the date, she was older than what she had indicated on the site. And so, I knew she was lying. And
jeez, so it was that obvious, the age gap?
Yeah, I mean, she was still an attractive woman. Again, I'm middle-aged here. This isn't, your age group. But it was just an idea that she did, And I think I'm the type of person where if that's like that gives me a view into someone. If they're going to lie on those types of things, where else might they lie in life? Totally. And so immediately for me, that's a turnoff. Mm-hmm. And so I was really disappointed in that. And it really taught me a lesson. Not that would have been, there really wouldn't have been any way to prevent that. But I had put aside, I think it was a Saturday night, I remember, because I didn't have many Saturdays at that time in my life. And I'm sitting there waiting, and she shows up, and here she is, older, and there were other things about the date that kind of turned me off. So I think you should expect to have those things happen. So what I started to do was meet people for a coffee or a more casual setting. Because getting the dinner and reservations and all these things, and again, I like to impress people. I admit that was part of who I am as a person. But then I found, you know what? I'd rather just step back for a minute, and I did. I ended up meeting some people for coffees, and it was very evident just sitting there that there wasn't a connection, if that's the right term.
Right.
So I would say that the moral of my story was I had gone through quite a few of these compared to you.
How many dates did you go on?
It was a lot. It not only the dates, but how many people that I actually talked to. It was funny. There used to be your uncle would come over, and I'd have the website up, and you could see all these, you could type in you wanted girls this age and blah, blah, blah. And it would populate all these pictures of these girls. That's how it worked. So that's when you could decide. You could click on it and then just read about them and then send them I think it was a smiley face. I forget what they called it. A wink. It was a wink. That's what it was. You'd wink at them. So that would tell them that you were interested. So if they winked back or sent you a message, yeah, well, it sounds corny, but that's how it all started. So Rick would come over and wink girls for me.
Oh, you would
Yeah,
pick up?
he would. And then I'd be getting these messages or whatever. Anyway, so I think, as I look back at it, and this is where is that I really began to not necessarily say, well, dating online is a bad thing. It's how you approach it and what your expectations are. I think what I learned was that the process between the wink and then actually communicating with someone, I shortened that. I became better at some of my questions and talking to people on the phone, which I think gave me a different, in my case, a better impression. And then from there, I could, at that point, if I'm talking to them, I could then proceed to say, hey, would you like to meet sometime or what have you?
Right.
Assuming because they were talking to me on the phone, there was some interest. And so I went on quite a few dates, and I met a variety of people, and I remember meeting people where we both knew there wasn't a connection there. Mm-hmm. It was obvious to both of us. And it might have been more her than me, and so forth. It doesn't matter. But I remember just saying, hey, it was really nice to meet you, and, best of luck with your search kind of thing. And that was that.
I feel like this is so interesting to hear you say this, because I think I was on the phone with you like a few days ago. I had gone out almost every night, I think, because the dating app. Yeah, I think I told you this.
It can get tiring.
I don't know how I feel like so lucky hearing some stories, because I meet this guy, right? And then I'm going on dates also with other people. And just having one glass of wine every night. By the way, before this, I was drinking maybe once a month, maybe twice a month, going out to a restaurant here and there. I think I did 10 days, not every single day, but every other day. I was having a glass of wine and a dinner out at a restaurant. And I remember waking up, I called my dad. I was like, Dad, I don't know how I can date. My face is puffy. I'm kind of hungover. I need to recover so then I can go on this other double date. We're going out. I was just how could I'm eating lobster rolls. I'm just my eyes are so puffy. I was like, how do people date like this forever?
Well, I think there's some people that like the serial dating stuff.
Yeah, they do.
I think both men and women, for that matter.
True.
I think one of the traps that I fell into was you'd be on these sites and you could compare, several women by looks, by what was in their profile, and you began to really say, she's only 5'2". Oh, she's 6 foot tall. Or, oh, she's got blonde hair. Oh, brown. Her eyes are green. Oh, they're blue. And you get into this. It's almost like a selection process, which that's not how life works.
Yeah.
It shouldn't. I think it's, what you like in a person, don't get me wrong. But I think I found myself getting a little bit wrapped around that kind of stuff too, where I was like, who am I to sit there and be like, well, man, they don't have green eyes. Well, forget that. It's versus just getting to know a person, right?
Right.
And so I think we have to be careful of that. So in the end, my story is really, I did meet somebody who's now my wife. And
you winked at her.
Yeah, it started with the wink. And I remember, and funny, somewhere I actually have our first communications. I should show them to you. You'd crack up.
The screenshots?
Yeah, I took screenshots of isn't that funny? It's been a while since I looked at them. And Terry and I, my wife, we talked on the phone. Then we did communicate also via email, and then we went out on a date.
You guys emailed?
And yeah, it was funny. Well, because again, it was I think it was maybe we went to the email, then a phone call, because going through the app was really arduous. It was difficult.
Okay.
So I think maybe that's what we did. I kind of forget that part. But the point being is that I really when we talked on the phone, you can just tell when you talk to somebody. At least I am. I'm a person. I've spent my whole life, though, in sales and different things. And, I've communicated that way for so long. And I knew when I got her on the phone, she's high energy, giggly, kind of fun, laughed at things. I go, well, this is the kind of person I'd like to meet. And we met, and the rest is history, as they say. So I think both of us wanted to share these stories and talk about this because, maybe you've done it and you've been frustrated. I know people that have. And it may just be that it's not the app's fault as much as it is your approach to it. And so hopefully with...
Yeah, men.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Well, and I think this goes to our tips now. I think, giving you some tips and tricks, and maybe you've tried some of these, and maybe through, you guys are...
Yeah, I've got some good ones.
Yeah, and I think, feel free to give us your tips and tricks because... And I think you need to be honest with yourself before you get the tips and tricks, or this probably is one of the tips. What are you really looking for? Are you looking for, true love, the person that you would love to find and marry? Are you in that mode, or are you in a mode of just dating? Are you in the mode of just hooking up or whatever? So I think you really need to be honest with yourself, and therefore honest with the person that your intentions are going towards.
Right away?
Well, I think if your idea is, hey, I'm going to take you to dinner and you're going to go home with me, I don't know if you would communicate that in a text message, but I think that goes back to the phone call, having a talk with someone on the phone. I think you get a feel for that. Yeah. I do, is my point. So what do you think? Get into tips and tricks?
So I have a couple good tips.
All right, let's do it.
So my tip number 1 is keep small talk to a minimum on the app. Sorry, I'm reading the board down there. I think a lot of the times people get caught up in, hey, how are you? How was your weekend? What'd you do? You went there. Oh, cool. I kind of like an opening line, maybe something that sparks their interest, your interest, whatever. And then as a woman, I like a guy to ask me out on a date or ask for my number. You give him the number, and I give him maybe 2 or 3 little back and forth. So them twice, me twice. And if they don't ask to see me or what I'm up to, or they'd love to take me out, I kind of ditch it. And my attention span's over. So keep small talk to a minimum. For the first couple of dates, maybe the first, second date, meet in public, or make your second date. I did this with the guy. The first date was in public, and the second date I was able to bring a friend because he had friends. So then we all met up.
Group
setting. Some people don't like groups. They want to be really courted right away with intimate dinners back to back to back. That's just something, just always meet in public. You just never know if you're going to run into like a Ted Bundy. You know what I mean? So do a little bit of Google research. There's so much information, especially even if you're like in your 20s. Everyone pretty much in a professional field has a LinkedIn. I don't, however, have a LinkedIn, but I do have social media. You can very much find out what I look like. I am on camera, no makeup. I am on camera in photos. I am on the
and you're
internet.
Pretty real. When a lot of your videos, you're real. You're not.
You can kind of get
what you eat, all that stuff.
Do a little Google research. Don't get crazy. I did do research on every single person I was meeting up. I am a scaredy cat. I get scared. I watch my back. So that's a really good one.
I think the Googling thing too is kind of funny. I look back at that, and that wasn't. I maybe did that a couple times when I look back, and I think, maybe guys are different about this, but I even recommend it for, whether you're a guy or girl, that you do it. And, there's LinkedIn, there's so many different ways people are, now I'm not a Facebook person, but there's Facebook,
Yep.
You can even have a friend look on their Facebook for that person.
Right.
I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to really
absolutely
find out.
Couple quick last 2 tips. First date, I always do maximum 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Just even if you're really feeling the date, it just kind of makes you look like you've got something going on. Your time's very valuable. It almost makes you look a little, you've got a life too. And this was a quick meet and greet. Even if you had the most amazing time, you can have an amazing second date. So my first date with the person I'm seeing now was, I think it was like 2-ish hours, and we were out of there. And that's kind of what I liked. It was great. And then with that, have an exit strategy. So make a plan maybe with a friend afterwards, or maybe make your own little plans if you've got stuff to do at home and it's you got to wake up for a workout class in the morning. Make sure you just get something going on your to-do list so you're not like lying to get out. You actually have an exit plan. And if you've never done a workout class, make a workout class at 7 a.m. Screw it and say, I got to be home by 10. Those are my main tips for when you're first going on your first couple of dates via a dating app. And those are great. They've always worked out great for me, whether the person was like, you're in a rush, goodbye, or, oh, I can't wait to see you again. You know, they were great. So any tips on your end?
I think you covered it. I would just say, be honest. You know, I think we live in a world today that people are trying to either project something they're not, or, you know, they feel like they have to do that in order to get accepted. And I think that's part of the problem. And these dating apps have kind of allowed people to put this wall between them and people sometimes that they can, you know, lie about things or not be as honest as they should. And it's going to be, for those people who have done that or consider doing that, I'll tell you, it's going to take you longer to meet the person that you're looking to meet. For those that are really serious about meeting their future partner, I would tell you honesty is the best policy in everything. And I would also get you to think about, we talked a little bit about this on the last dating app. Have a series of questions that are sort of related to what's important to you in your life and what a person that you would consider or what you'd want to be in your life, what those questions should be in order to learn that. And I'm not saying you should treat a first date as an interview. I think you need to have fun and chill.
Totally.
And, you know, talk and laugh and make sure, you know, if you like someone with a sense of humor, that you have that. But I think there's ways to do it while you're in that mode. I think you can ask these questions. And if you're not familiar with the types of questions, if you look at our last podcast on dating, we talked about some of those. But I think you should be prepared for that. And again, this is if you're in the mode of looking for someone that you really want to date and spend more time with and build a relationship with. Mm-hmm. If you're just going out to party and have fun, then, you know, none of that really matters. I mean, you can just do whatever. But we're talking about those folks that are really looking to use an app as a convenience to meet, hopefully, someone that they can build a relationship with. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, and get to know, and like genuinely want to get to know someone. I think,
but be safe. I can't.
Yeah.
I think it's so important because I know every once in a while stories come out about this stuff. Just be smart. You know, where you meet someone, who's around, have the exit strategy. Some people I know around the exit strategy had an emergency. They would. I actually had this happen to me.
Contact.
So I sat down with this gal, and it was clear that I don't think she wanted to be there. And within like 20 minutes, her phone rang, right? She goes, I have to get this. I said, okay. And she picked it up, and she had this really concerned look on her face, and she hung up. She goes, I have to go. There's something going on with my kids. And she left. So that was rude. You know, frankly, I felt really, luckily I wasn't sitting there spending a bunch of money on a dinner or anything, but it was clear that she had a strategy where she had told her friend, call me in 20 minutes. And that could call, the other side of that call would be this. Oh, sorry, I have to get this. Oh, hello? Okay. Yeah, no problem. All right, bye. Everything's good. Bye.
Right. Like, see, if it was good or bad.
Right. It may not be a bad strategy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. Where if you said,
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. If you said to your friend, hey, call me in 45 minutes.
Yep.
I'll answer. If I say everything's great, or I'm glad, thank you for telling me that, you'll know the date's going well. If I say, hey, yeah, I'll leave in 5 minutes, you'll know that the date's not going well, and maybe you should follow up with me in 15 minutes.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
I've never thought of that.
And it's smart from a safety perspective, because you're telling them where you're going, who you're meeting. They know all that.
Plus, then you get to get out of the date if you're not into it.
That's exactly right. That's what this girl did to me. I could tell. It was kind of funny. I remember sitting there I felt kind of crappy.
You got turned back down?
Yeah. But I remember thinking to myself, well, hey, you know what? At least I know. You know, at least it to me, that might not be the best strategy, but now I know she's clearly not interested in me. So those are just a few things. I think we'll continue to visit the dating.
My story is to be continued.
Yeah, I think everyone's is, and I hope that you found this information interesting, and we'll come back. And if you have stories, hit us up. We're on YouTube. You can comment there. Please.
You're on YouTube right now if you're actually watching this video.
Oh, you're right. And please subscribe. And give us some comments. Thumbs up don't hurt either. And then tell all your friends who are looking to master online dating to
and
come to
dating apps.
Set the standard.
The Seldon standard. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
All right. Peace out.